Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Opener, a new Rays podcast where myself, Zack Brodersen, and my co-host, Will Goellner, we're going to talk Rays ball. Will, we talk enough Rays ball on our own time as lifelong fans and growing up in the area that we figured we might as well record it and put it on the internet forever. And so, Will, with that, how are you opening today?
I wish I was open a little bit better, but unfortunately the Rays have had back-to-back losing seasons from 2024 and 2025. First time as fans we've seen back-to-back losing seasons since 2014, 2015. So hopefully 2026 is a change in the right direction. At least go over 500, but of course get back towards the postseason.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about some projections here, which it'll be interesting which side we want to take on that. And you're right, it's been an uncharacteristically bad run, and I think the front office and obviously on and off the field a lot changed. I think they reset going into this season with some guys going out, notable names going out, a lot of young guys coming in, which it'll be fun to track them this year. So the opener, obviously the Rays pioneered this kind of idea of an opener. So that's where we came up with this name here, because I think it makes sense. You know, the Rays are always on the cutting edge, and I think it fits the theme, but at the same time, you could open your day with the opener. You know, you could open your day on the car ride to work with the opener. There's some good Rays podcasts out there, but you can't get enough content, especially if you're a hardcore fan. So we're hoping to bring some of that to you, and we're going to start today. We got a few things, more than a few things that we want to get to. We're going to start by looking at the first games of spring. We've got baseball's back. Baseball's here. So we've got a few things we want to talk about. We'll just hit on a few highlights. It is spring ball, so you know I can get carried away. I'm going to try not to. After that, we'll shift to the state of the Rays, where there's a lot to talk about, including ownership, stadium, projections for 26, so we'll get into that. And that should be a nice segue into the outfield plan. What the hell is going on in the outfield? That's going to be a question we'll try to answer. We'll do our best. It's an interesting situation right now. Then we've got a head-to-head here. So I'm going to take the side of Ian Seymour. Will's going to take the side of Joe Boyle. And we're going to see, it'll be a little bit of a heavyweight bout, fighting out of the red corner, the blue corner, talk about those pitchers. Second to last topic, Caminero extension. And then we're going to finish things off by talking about two hitters and two pitchers that we want you to be looking at during spring. So we'll give you something to chew on and track their progress. But first things first, spring's here. We've got a couple of games. We're just coming off the second game from today. Will, what are some takeaways that you want to hit on here from the early stages of spring ball?
Yeah. Of course, it is early. We've had just not even a week of games that we've seen, right? No one has had back-to-back games besides, I think Jacob Melton is the only guy. So I think a couple things to touch on is, of course, Jacob Melton makes contact with the ball, and that ball went absolutely flying. Somehow there's no StatCast on that ball.
They got it. They didn't have it. My guess was like 110. The way he pimped it, it was 104.7.
Okay, I was thinking 104.7. Yeah, so I knew it was a high velo. What was the distance on that?
Or was one? Or let's see here, 10. Did they lose it? No, 104.7. They clocked it at. They don't have the distance. So, but 850 expected batting average. So it's. So I can definitely would have gone out of Yankee Stadium.
I like to think that ball went about like 405 feet.
Yeah.
And now no one can tell me I'm wrong.
Why stop there
until that number comes out? But yeah, obviously exciting. The first couple at bats you saw in the first game, and then this one, a couple strikeouts, right? And that's probably one of the worst things that you want to see from a prospect that so highly coveted, especially in our system, and trading away face of franchise in Brandon Lau to get him in that trade. So it was nice to see that. The long ball home run for him. So it's definitely promising. He had a bit of a nice little grab in the outfield too with some wins. So of course, excited to see Jacob Melton and see if that success continues with the bat for sure.
Yeah, he got a bad jump on that. It was so windy out there, and we got a bad jump on that at first, but recovered for the diving play. If there's anybody that I think might be feeling the heat a little bit, I'm sure a lot of the pitchers are feeling the heat, but in the lineup especially, I think he is feeling the heat of like putting pressure on himself to succeed. I think we saw that a little bit in his first at-bats, and maybe he kind of got it to click a little bit there with that swing. So it's good to see. I mean, that's the wrap on him. Cash was talking very highly about the sound coming off the bat being like Caminero, and Yandy, which okay,
That's
pique
high
my
praise.
interest. Get me hyped up. I wanted to touch on the big rule change for this year. No surprise, the ABS system is coming, and we saw a lot of it, especially in game 2.
Hmm.
Give Hunter Fiducia long leash because he nailed 3 in a row. The umpire today was terrible. Okay, it's spring ball. I'm not going to start getting too hard on the umpires, but he was off. Like he missed some bad ones, both sides. But yeah, Hunter Fiducia, you've got my approval. You could challenge whenever you want. So for those of you that don't know, the way that it works is it's calculated off the player's height. So everyone's going to have a different, like the Altuve zone is going to be half the size of the Judge zone. There could be some interesting stuff this year with height. Watch this space, and then they measure it at the midpoint of the plate. So it's not the front of the plate. It's not the area of the plate. It's the middle of the plate. And what could be interesting, I saw this video by this guy, Lance Brozdowski, who's like a pitcher genius on YouTube. And if you haven't seen him, you got to check him out. He was saying that a place where we might see some changes in strategy for pitching is at the top of the zone with breaking balls. Because if you ever see like somebody throws a curveball and it kind of slips and it starts out at the batter's head, but then it drops into the zone and you're watching on TV and it hits the box and the ump misses it. It hits like the top of the box. Ump misses it because it just visually coming at them looks like it's high, but it's a strike. And the Rays have kind of that unique pitching strategy of just kind of aiming down the middle. So we'll maybe get into this in a little bit. And I wonder if the Rays could actually stand to benefit this more than other teams, getting those breaking balls at the top of the zone. This is very inside baseball, but something to think about.
Yeah. I mean, the Rays are always just pushing the envelope just a little bit more, right? How much can they do, or even you could even say how much can they get away with? And they might already be on that of, we can be tossing these high curveballs that have no business being strikes, but just in that middle of the zone, it just clips the top. You don't even need half a baseball in it. You just need just a small seam to touch that ABS zone, and that gets called as a strike. And I bet a lot of umpires are going to hate them because they're going to probably do this a lot more than you realize they're going to do. And like you said, Hunter Fiducia, he's absolutely perfect. I mean, he did have
dialed.
one where the pitch, I think he was batting and he got it wrong, but that also reflects the point of it was so close. It's like it's down to the half quarter inch of an inch for it. So yeah, I'm excited to see just kind of how the Rays put their own twist on this sort of system.
And I like the added tension and suspense element of it. As long as it doesn't, there was a glitch today in one of the games where it didn't work, but if it works 99% of the time, I actually don't know what the process would be if it doesn't work. I think they just kept playing in that game. But if it works 99% of the time, and if it's quick within 8 to 10 seconds, it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's just that little bit of suspense. Who was right, who was wrong. I think the catchers are going to be the big winners at the end of this season. They're going to be the most accurate, more than the hitters and the pitchers. And so it's going to be an interesting thing to touch on. And we've seen it a little bit before, but we've got it in spring ball, and obviously it's going to be in the regular season, postseason. So we'll keep our eye on that. So I want to transition us to a meaty section of today's podcast. I would imagine this is our first go at this, so we'll see. But state of the Rays, state of the union, a lot happened, and I think if you're watching this podcast, I don't know if there's going to be breaking news for you. This will be a deep cut Rays fan, but I think first and foremost, Will, we got to start with the new ownership group. And what are your first impressions of Zalupski, Babby? We haven't seen much of Cosgrove, but what are your first thoughts? What comes to mind with the new group here leading the Rays?
Yeah, I'm excited for them. I think it's a good feeling for Rays fans to have owners that seem like they care about the team. Now, I will, give Sternberg a little small prop of credit. Anytime I ever saw Stu Sternberg on the broadcast, he was always dialed into the games. He was always excited to watch. But just because you're a fan of the game doesn't mean you're the best owner of a team. So, I mean, we've already seen, this ownership group be very outspoken about what they're looking to do, especially when it comes to a new stadium. They've been listening to fans on Twitter. So, I mean, it's early on. It might be a honeymoon phase with them, but right now I'm pretty excited to see how they move forward into this season and obviously beyond.
I agree. They haven't given me a reason to doubt them yet, which makes me happy. And everything we heard about Stu was that, like, behind closed doors in the organization, he was a great leader and a great boss. We have him to thank for a lot of success because he was the one. He seemed to know how to hire the right people, and it was a smart thing, a good first impression right away from the opening press conference with the new guys that they were going to keep Cash and Neander, because that's where the success, I think, starts for us on the field, right? I mean, well, that's kind of obvious, but it all trickles down from those guys who have been very successful working together. It seems like the new ownership group, what they have a little bit different is they seem to understand that other piece of the community, and also they have political connections and they're savvy with, it takes a lot of things have to go right in any new stadium deal. I mean, you have to get a lot of people on board, a lot of money on board. They haven't really talked money much yet, so that's going to be a big hurdle. But they have had an agreement to agree to go forward with the new stadium, which is, I think, their priority number one. It's, we'll see what the product on the field is, but priority one for them seems to be the stadium, and they've quickly moved on that. And we'll come back to that in a second. But before we leave off these guys, it seems like Zalupski and Cosgrove are a little more in the background, and Babby is the guy they want front and center. And he's been very good. He's a businessman. He has experience in baseball. Zalupski and Cosgrove have experience with real estate. So their plan is to have the stadium be public-private partnership. Stadium be public-private partnership. Everything outside of that, all the restaurants and bars, the multi-purpose element that they want to be funded by them. So I think that's I'm sure the team will make money, but I think that's the other part of this that can then also funnel back into the team is their plan outside of it. And hopefully with that, we could get some more payroll into the team, which would be exciting.
Yeah. I mean, when you really think about it, a baseball stadium, besides maybe being used as some sort of concert venue or other sort of event venue, which baseball stadiums really aren't widely used for them a lot of the times, but they're only used maybe 82 to 100 days in a full year, right? So you're looking at a lot of ballparks now that are developing area outside of it for fans to go and enjoy when there's not games going on, right? When it's the off season where there's still bars and restaurants, even things like hotels to still generate that revenue in the off season. And I think if anybody knows, it's Rays fans that baseball is a business, right? And it all comes down to money. So I feel like these guys know what they have to do to not be like the previous ownership group.
I agree. And so I'm gonna get in post here and throw some pictures of the new stadium on the screen. And I'm intrigued by it. It's got an interesting look to it with the glass ceiling. It's sort of a pizza slice shape there. It looks like a tight fit. And in fact, if it goes as planned, which long way to go before we know for sure what it's actually going to look like, but if it goes as planned, it'll actually be the smallest stadium in the league, capacity of 31,000. It's not like we've been able to pack the house at the Trop. I'm sure the new stadium and the better location is going to change that. I think it can only be good for how much they pack the house, but it is interesting that they're planning it to be the smallest stadium, and it's a tight fit right there, plus the mixed use element of it with the college campus. And I think that could be good for attracting college fans. Like, this is after class or studying whatever on a Tuesday night, go catch the game. And I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of ticket packages for college students in the area. I think there's something like 40,000 students. I don't know how many of them go to campus or live on campus, but that is an immediate, in my opinion, new market share that they could grab of fans that can very easily get into the stadium. So I think that's smart, actually, and it also looks good on them to be partnering with the college and the public institution.
Yeah, I mean, you even have college students that are coming from somewhere that don't have baseball teams, right? Especially in Tampa, right? Not just you have USF and University of Tampa that's there. So you have people that come and maybe don't care about baseball, but they come and they see the Rays and they kind of grow a fan base just from them, right? So it is that extra opportunity that I feel like we haven't seen before of those extra demographics that are maybe targeted in certain situations to go to these games.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. And so now looking at, so that's some off the field stuff where there's been a lot of off the field, the busiest off season ever, really. And also on the field. I mean, the turnover that we had, especially in the outfield, also in the pitching staff. You highlighted yesterday to me that only two of the guys in the starting rotation were in the starting rotation to start last year, Rasmussen and Pepio, which is pretty crazy. And all of this adds up to, the new team adds up to a PECOTA projection, which this is a, they simulated whatever thousands of times to get you an average. They got us penciled in for 81 wins, so dead 500. And that puts us last in the division. Last of the AL East. They've got Toronto and New York tied at the top with 89. And then there's a little bit of a gap between those two and the rest of us with the Rays at the bottom. What do you think? Are you taking the over or are you taking the under on 81 wins for 2026?
I think when the whole offseason was starting and you said this team can win 81 games, I'd probably call you a little crazy. To me, they seem like a 75 win team. And I don't know if it's just copium, if it's just spring ball starting, but I'm definitely going to take the over on 81 wins. I think this team has closer towards like a 85, maybe 88 win ceiling, right? And that's, a lot of things have to go right. The pitching has to stay healthy. The guys on the field have to produce like they want them to produce. And then the young guys have to take that next step. But I don't think it's wildly absurd to think that this team can exceed that 81 game expectation, especially when you're looking at the rest of the division, right? If they only have the Yankees and the Blue Jays projected 89 wins at the top of the division, then I'd have to assume that there's a lot of room for improvement for all of these teams.
Yeah. I go the other way. Unfortunately, I'm a little bearish on 81. I think if we get to 500, something you said, I'll take a spin on it, is a lot of things have to go right. And I think in order for all this to work, Junior's got to repeat or improve, which we'll get to him in a moment. I actually think that will happen. But you're expecting improvement from a lot of young guys. You've got older veterans in roles that hoping for the best there. The pitching staff, our success weighs heavily on McClanahan and Rasmussen's health, and also Pepio's been healthy lately, and hopefully that trend continues, but he also they cut down on his work towards the end of last year, which was probably just a smart move, just a precautionary move. It feels like a lot of things have to go right. I'm not worried about the bullpen. There's a lot to talk about in the bullpen, for sure. We probably will do a what the hell's going on in the bullpen, just like we're going to do for the outfield in a moment, because there's only probably 4 spots locked up right now. But I just don't see us getting to 81, and I hope that I'm wrong, especially in this AL East right now. I'm sure it's going to fall apart for one of these teams. Surely not everything's going to go right for the Orioles or the Red Sox, and I actually don't think we're going to end up in last, but I've got us at like 4th with 79 wins. That's my gut for 2026.
Okay, yeah, just missing out. Yeah, I think a lot does have to go right for all the teams, right? We could dive into it another time, but can the Orioles pitching staff, actually be good? Can the Blue Jays continue what they did last year? Can the Yankees get over that hump? It feels like that they just haven't been able to get over. So, yeah, I mean, it's baseball and it's a long season. Usually at the end of the year, you start looking back at old games saying, man, if we would have won this game or this game earlier in the year, maybe something would have changed. But yeah, I think just the hope in me just has that they'll, make that push of like I said, I think he said like 84 to 89 wins.
I'll be tracking Shane Baz when because I would imagine it'll line up where he gets a start against us at some point, right? I mean, the odds would just say that. Is he going to all of a sudden figure out a third pitch? I was listening to some podcast like a month ago, and they were talking about Shane Baz maybe going to the Orioles as an organization are going to help him on the pitching front. And to me, that was like a head scratcher. Like, what if the Rays didn't figure it out? Who knows? Maybe new ideas or people can help him. But if we didn't quite get what we wanted out of him, now I think the Rays would have been fine keeping Shane Baz. They just had an offer that they couldn't refuse, so to speak, with the young talent they got. I mean, 4 guys and high draft pick guys too, and a mix of younger and older, mix of college, high school talent. So they probably just had to accept it. But I'll be circling Orioles games, and we also want to see what Big Meat Pete over there, Alonso, is going to pull out. Pun not intended on that one. So. Okay, different projection I got for you. Different over-under. So that was the team as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Oopsie, which is a projection system, has Junior Caminero ranked preseason as the 21st ranked position player by WAR at 4.6, just behind PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, and just ahead of another third baseman who's actually kind of a good comp for Junior. It'll be interesting, these guys head-to-head. That would be Austin Riley, is right behind him. 4.6 WAR. Are you going over or under for Junior this season?
I think I don't know if it's just how I'm feeling today. I think I'm going to take the over on that. I don't think it's a crazy higher over. I don't think he's really I don't think he's maybe going to hit, very much over a 5 WAR player this season. But there's been a lot of reports of his defense improving. It improved last year, and it seems like it's improving this year, which you could farm more with defense. If you look at guys like PCA and Taylor Walls, they could have great defense, and that boosts your WAR so much. And then add on to the fact of Junior's bat in that lineup, I would imagine that he's probably I'd say between like 4.8 and a 5 WAR player this year.
I'm with you. I'm going 5. I think he goes 5 WAR this year for what you said, the defense. I'm sure you're only going to say this, right? But the reports are only going to be good that he's working hard on his defense. But we saw a flash of it in the first game. Made a nice pick and a nice throw on the run. He wants this, and we're going to talk more about him in a later section. But I think that projection had him basically flat on an average third baseman defensively. I think he's better than average this year. And I think we've got a runway here where he's going to be better than average. He's 22 years old. And I see him getting better defensively and just the overall athleticism that he has, which if the bat is the same as last year, different ballpark, harder to hit in. But still, I think just defensively that's going to carry him over to 5. So that I'm with you. I think he's over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One more question related to projections here. So Taylor Walls is back, one of your favorites. We'll have a Walls minute, I'm sure, at some point in this. Well, he's kind of just like an icon for maybe lack of a better term for us Rays fans of Taylor Walls. Yeah. One of the greatest shortstop defenders of all time. Like it's literally he's right behind Andrelton Simmons when you look at just quality. Like there's no arguing that. And I don't think any Rays fan will really argue that. The bat is horrendous. But you got him. You've got newcomer Ben Williamson, who played quite a bit last year for the Mariners, and he is kind of like Walls. Maybe not quite, maybe let's say 85% as good defensively, but better, 10-15% better with the bat than Walls. It's no power. It's a contact approach. So you've got him in the mix now, and the front office seems to think that he can play all the infield positions. Second, third, and short. Probably not first, but we have first covered between Yandy and Aranda. So that leaves the Rays' number 1 prospect, Carson Williams. That leaves him in a little bit of limbo here. We saw him at the end of last year. Still rough around the edges when it comes to the hit tool. We know about the defense, the speed, the power. He flashed all of those things at times. Although I think he got a little nervous and a little shaky at times defensively, just being at the big league club. But my question for you, does he make the opening day roster?
Ooh, let me just say Taylor Walls is the best player on the planet until he has to take the bat off his shoulders. It is,
You're right.
He's had some big moments with the Rays, right? But obviously with a precautionary possible oblique injury, that does change it up a little bit. Unfortunately, for the Carson fans out there, no, he does not make the opening day roster. I mean, they said coming into this year, he's been working on the stuff, and I 100% think that coming up at the end of last season definitely helped him out. Kevin Cash said that they need to be moving quicker to the ball, like attacking the ball a little bit more.
Yes.
How the game is quicker, right? And in his first spring training game, right, he has that air of a pretty routine pop up at short. Yeah, the sun's up there, but you're not playing in Tropicana Field every single game, so you got to play with the sun. He was swinging through middle zone 95 fastballs, which first game maybe the timing's off is concerning, but I just don't think they want to rush this guy. I think the worst thing that you can do for Carson Williams is have him make the opening day roster. He stinks it up in the first month and they send him down to AAA. I think that can really, really affect him moving forward. So I think they'll slow play it. They won't have him make the opening day roster. Even if Taylor Walls is injured, I think they're going to go with Williamson to play shortstop and just let Carson develop more. The guy's still young. There's no reason to just throw him into the fire when it isn't needed. But that being said, he probably comes up at some point in the year, but he would need to have probably a perfect spring training. I think it was last spring training or the year before, his batting average was like in the 270 with an OPS above 800. And, he didn't make, he was in AAA for the whole season. And we saw how his AAA went. Still hit 20 home runs, but the average was down and the strikeouts were up. So I think they're just going to really take their time with this guy. Unless they're competing, they're really in no rush to have him take on the mantle of shortstop, at least not this year.
I agree. I don't think he starts on the opening day roster, which I think is good. But if he's flashing quickly in AAA, Williamson, I just checked, has 2 options left. So he's not necessarily a roadblock. I mean, they could flip him down to AAA. Williamson's got a projection of a 291 WOBA, 84 WRC plus, and a half WAR coming from the defense. They got him, but they only have him projected for 47 games. I'm taking the over on that. I think he's going to play more than 47 games. But if he doesn't, that's probably good news for Carson. That means he's coming in. I wouldn't want Carson to come up and be sitting on the bench. You want him to come up and be playing, and be playing every day. And I just don't think we're set up or planning for that right now. So I'm with you. And you touched on injuries. I meant to have us go through this at the top. So Walls was scratched today with oblique, which he ever heard of Josh Lowe?
Best words Rays fans can hear is oblique.
Just yeah, and Josh, Brandon Lau as well. Even I get my lows and lows still screwed up after all this time. It's crazy. So yeah, you got Chandler Simpson with a hammy. Not good when the legs are your game. I'm thinking that he's going to be all right. He's young and spry. The one that is worrying me, Will, is Uceta with the shoulder. It's not a forearm. That's good. But a guy that could be penciled in to at some point even be the closer this year, or probably projected for the most saves on the team. Down with the shoulder. What are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, Uceta is probably our best high leverage pitcher, and then following is Jackson Clevenger. But thankfully, like you said, it's not the elbow and it's not the forearm, it's the shoulder. Early reports, it hasn't really been getting better, but the imaging came back good. So that's, I guess, a good move. Anytime I'm hearing injuries from the Rays, I think I might have Shane McClanahan PTSD where, the report says, oh, he's going to be okay. It's just this little thing. And then they're out for the full season. So I think just kind of staying close. He's a huge part of this bullpen. And if we don't have Edwin Uceta for this, at least for the first half of the season, there's a lot extra pressure that's going to be put on some of these guys that are not used to pitching in high leverage situations. So I think if I'm the Rays, we're slow playing it, right? You probably won't be ready for opening day, but maybe after 2 or 3 weeks, you're good to go with no sort of restrictions.
Yeah, he got good news, but he also got a cortisone injection, which I'm not an expert here at all, but that worries me a little bit, is because I would think that would be for pain, and that seems like a Band-Aid, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
that's the one that worries me. We're more to come on Usato. Hopefully he can be there for opening day. Just for those of you scoring at home here, last year he got off to a rough start, but he ended up with 103 strikeouts in 76 innings. So the swing and miss and the K rate, I mean, there were so many times where he struck out 2 an inning. It was just, when he's on, it's the changeup and the heater and just the kind of funk, this kind of sidearm that he's got going. He's very good. He's very good at pitching. So that was injury minute here. So we talked about some projections here. We got to look at this outfield. We got to figure this out in the outfield because Fangraphs has 5 men on the 26 man. And that would be Mullins, Fraley, Simpson, DeLuca, Henry Malloy. So 2 outfielders on the bench. And none of those guys that I researched this a little bit, none of those guys, Jahan, they tried him at third base a little bit, didn't really work, but none of those guys are play infield. Those are outfielders, unless the Rays have something up their sleeve, which is possible. So if you're counting, keep track here, that leaves Melton, Palacios, Valade, and Mesa Jr. on the outside looking in AAA. Do you agree with the 5 that are on and the 4 that are off? And if you disagree, make the case for your outfield for 2026.
Yeah, I agree with 4 of the 5 guys that are going to be in there. Obviously, Cedric Mullins and Jake Fraley are going to be opening day locks. The Rays don't spend monies on guys just to cut them at the end of at the end of spring training, right? So they're going to be in, and I think they're going to be platoon guys for the most part. I would say DeLuca is for sure a lock as well. He's actually the only right-handed hitting outfielder on the 40-man roster from what I can gather. So they still
they have Jahan and then Valade, but to your point, he's the righty that's like actually has played baseball up to this point.
And he's flashed that he can play, right? I think, last season he was limited to only, I think it was about 20 games, but his OPS was good. His on base, his batting average, that was good. And he plays elite defense. And the Rays aren't really a team where they make this big trade like Tyler Glasnow and get 2 guys back and are pretty quick to give up on one of them per se. So I think Johnny DeLuca is going to be on the opening day roster. Chandler Simpson, you brought up his hamstring. If he's good to go, he's going to be on the roster just because no one has the legs like he does on the team, right? I hope his stolen base percentage and caught stealing percentage drops and he's a little bit more successful on those attempts. But I see him as a guy that the Rays are going to use continuously with his speed, right? He's a guy where if he walks and he gets or gets a single and he's on first, he's going to be on third base within 3 pitches, right? He puts a lot of pressure on the pitchers and a lot of pressure on the catchers. Can his defense improve? That's yet to be seen. He's working with the best defensive outfielder of Rays history and probably a top 5 defensive outfielder in baseball history. So we'll see kind of how that works. In terms of the guys not making it, Melton he's going to be in at some point, right? We saw the power today. We saw the defense today, even if the play didn't start great, it ended really well. So I believe to see Melton at some point, whether that's for Chandler Simpson, whether it's for Jake Fraley or Cedric Mullins, he'll be up. I'm surprised that they have Richie Palacios in AAA, just for the fact that he's actually an outfielder that can play second base. So I could see him starting in AAA, but he's going to be someone that comes up pretty quick if you have an injury to someone like Gavin Lux, and they need that lefty infielder at second base. For all the other 3 guys, Mesa Jr., Vladi, and Justin Henry Malloy, Vladi actually doesn't have any options. So if he doesn't make the opening day roster, he's going to be cut unless he takes a minor league contract. And then the other 2 guys, I think, are just going to be depth pieces. So if needed, they'll come up, or if they're performing really good, I'm really excited for Mesa Jr. actually. So if they're performing good, I could see the Rays making some sort of move. I think Jake Fraley actually has a pretty short leash for the outfielder. They didn't invest too much into him. He's really a platoon guy. So I see it as more like a Danny Jansen situation. If you're not really doing what we need you to do, we're just going to trade you away and give somebody else an opportunity.
Yeah, I was gonna say that same thing with Fraley. I mean, they did sign him, and it was weird because it was like they cut him and then re-signed him, which was kind of it was a strange move. But he's making, I think, $3 million, so it's not like a huge commitment even for the little Rays of Tampa. They could cut him and bring Melton up. For me, I think Melton and Simpson, it's going to be a really interesting question because for all we've heard is that Melton's defense is center field quality, and Simpson we don't know yet. And right now grades out not well, but it's early. He still was an infielder in college, so we'll see. It makes sense for him to be an outfielder in my opinion. So we'll see what the work with Kiermaier is. There's no doubt he's been working on it. We'll see what kind of influence Mullins has on him, which I want to touch on Mullins for a second because all those guys we just talked about, Cedric Mullins is probably the best outfielder on the team right now. Just looking at it, there's guys who have upside that he probably doesn't have anymore, going back to when he was one of the best players in the league for at least 1 year, but then he followed that up with a solid year as well. He's probably the best outfielder on the team at this point, unless one of those guys just, unless all of a sudden a Melton or Simpson takes a leap. Melton has that in him. He's a totally opposite profile of Simpson, truly, besides the speed element of it. So for Mullins, you're looking at 1.5. The projections have him at 1.5 WAR in a platoon role, so like 110 games. That's pretty good. I mean, that's above average if you extrapolate that out to a 162 pace. And the bat should be average, around a 700 OPS is what we should anticipate from Mullins. Anything more than that is a win. The defense and speed still grade as above average, and he can play center field. Him and Melton we have DeLuca as well, are the only guys who can play center. We haven't seen Melton. He looks good. He looks like he can play center. So I'm really interested to see what Mullins has. I mean, this was the big offensive free agent for us this year. 1 year deal. He could get traded in a heartbeat unless we're in contention. And I'm interested to see what we're going to learn about him because he's been raved about, his presence in the clubhouse, on the field as a leader. And I'm interested to see what kind of stories come out this year about how he helped somebody with a read or a jump or with identifying something at the plate, because he's one of the more veteran guys. And I'm very curious about Mullins. So yeah, that's the projections got him at 1.5 WAR. I'm not going to give you an over under question on this one, but that's what they got him as in a platoon role here. So
yeah, I see Mullins, he's just a touch on it. I see him, he has that floor of, 710, 730 OPS you'll get from him and good defense as well. I don't really take his Mets stats too much into it because going from, being with the Orioles your whole career and then you're getting shipped off to New York, that's a pretty big change, right? So
yeah,
I think he's going to be someone that the other outfielders, mainly Simpson, more than anyone else, relies on, of understanding how to play defense at a major league level, right? Even if it's not platinum glove defense, but enough where you can be in the lineup every day, all 9 innings, and not be worried if a ball gets hit to you.
And he is projected for a platoon role. He has shown times where he actually hits lefties pretty well. So you're right. I mean, with the defense and the speed and athleticism, he could turn into somebody who plays 130 games, and we're going to shake it out. So your final answer here is take me through your final answer here again for the outfield opening day 26.
Opening day, and this is assuming Chandler Simpson's injury, his hamstring is fine, cleared, he's good to go. I got Simpson in left field, Mullins in center, Jake Fraley in right, with Johnny DeLuca platooning in probably center field. That's where I want to see Johnny DeLuca is in center field. I think that's where he'd be the best in, but he's someone that can bounce between left field, center field, and right field. So I would say those 4 Rays are not going to come into the season with 5 outfielders on their roster.
Yeah, and if they do it probably would be Palacios. I mean, I could see Henry Malloy, but it'd probably be Palacios for the infield flexibility. Palacios can't stay healthy either, so this could all we might go into this season thinking we've got 1 million outfielders, and in 2 months we've got like 2 of them, and they're all injured. So we'll see. Fraley doesn't have a great track record either. He's on the IL a lot. So okay, so let's say we think we got the outfield figured out. what we believe in, and we'll track that throughout spring here. So maybe what we don't have figured out just yet is we know what the 5-man rotation is. We signed a couple of veterans to fill in the rotation, which leaves Ian Seymour and Joe Boyle as odd men out, potentially, on the outside looking in right now. And we're going to go head to head here. So I've got Ian Seymour, you've got Joe Boyle, and we're going to make the case for each of them. And I want you, as the viewer, to tell us in the comments who you're taking. We're going to do a little debate here. So I want you to kick it off with Joe B. Before that, I'll tee this up and say that you really can't compare two. These are two totally different profiles in so many ways. One's a righty, one's a lefty. The lefty does not have great velo, but has a deep mix. The righty has great velo, but has maybe 3 pitches, potentially a 4th. We heard he was messing with a slower breaking ball. He hasn't pitched yet in spring training. So these are just totally polar opposites, and we're going to put them head to head. So with that, Will, tell me about Joe Boyle.
Yeah, so for those that maybe don't remember, right? Rays traded Jeffrey Springs and Jacob Lopez for Joe Boyle, right? And a little was unsure about Joe Boyle in his first couple seasons in the pros, right? His first year didn't really do too much, and then his second year in just 10 starts, he had a 6.42 ERA. But it was always seen that the velo was there. This guy is a tower. He's 6'8" and has a fastball that absolutely blows by hitters that touches 99, 100 miles per hour. Some of the stats for Joe Boyle from last season that I have written down here: in 52 innings pitched last year, he had a 4.67 ERA, a 1.365 WHIP, which, in case you don't know, is not a very good WHIP. So that means, for walks and hits with his inning pitches, you'd expect at least 2 guys are probably getting on base every single inning that he pitches. But you pair that up with a 10 strikeouts per 9, and it turns into like a weird profile, right? How do you have such a high ERA? How are you letting so many guys on base, but you're getting 10 strikeouts every 9 innings you're pitching? And it really just comes down to his walk and his pitch selections that he gives up. If you look at his metrics, right, he is absolutely elite in his fastball velocity. His K percentage is elite. Even his ground ball percentage is really, really good. But when you start looking at things like the exit velo and the chase percentage and the barrel rates, that's where a lot of his downfall comes in stats like that.
I've got so much on Joe B, Sport Goggle Man himself, and I think the velo gives him a high ceiling. He's got some pretty good stuff grades. Actually, on his off-speed stuff, has better grades than his fastball. That's my main concern, I guess my rebuttal, besides the walk rate, because that's just, I expected more from him last year. It came in at 12.4%, or 12.4, yeah, 12.4%, fourth percentile, so poor. And this was always the rep on him. My concern is he has the great velo with the heater and the other pitches just across the board. He's got great velo. The fastball shape is very mid. It doesn't have a lot of induced vertical break, doesn't have a lot of that carry. It doesn't have exceptional ride. It's right on the middle of MLB average on the pitch plot. And my concern is that if he's not finding the zone with other pitches, he's got to go to the four seam. And even if it's a hard four seam, which is a good thing, the shape is not going to miss too many bats because these guys can hit velo. And that's my worry. So I would say he's messing with the slower breaking ball. My thought is, why not try a sinker? The Rays lowered his arm slot already. I'll try to throw this on screen here in post, but they lowered his arm slot from 2023. It was 53 degrees down to 32. Massive difference. I mean, he's kind of sidearm almost. Not really, but you'll see on the plot significant mechanical change year over year. And I think that would fit better. First of all, that probably will help with his health, but also I think that's going to fit really nicely with the two seam. And so now if he had a two fastball approach, he could go. The hitter has to guess a little more. Is it going to be the four seam? Is it going to be the sinker in the zone? And I think that could help him stay in accounts better.
Yeah, I mean, when you kind of look at like you said, especially with his arm angle and that fastball, there's really not too much of a rise or much really movement at all with his fastball from where his arm is being released, right? So it's a pretty easy follow through from the hand into the zone to the bat, right? Not a lot of guessing, not a lot of eye movement.
It's a great
with
point.
it. You know, batter's eyes are staying the same from where you're releasing the pitch to where it's going. And, you know, when you're using your four seam about 50% of the time, you know, the batters can guess pretty easily when that's coming, right? Especially when your slider is about your other second pitch, right? Yeah, there's the split, but it's not really used as much. I think the big concern when it comes to Joe Boyle is also just the chase percentage and his barrel rates, right? So his batting average for balls in play was 2.82 on that batting average. So essentially, if you're making contact, there's a pretty good chance that you're ending up on base. And the exit velo was at 91.1 on average. And that always ties into those power pitchers, right? Obviously, if you're throwing 100 miles per hour, you just have to make contact, and that ball is probably about 85 to 90 off the bat anyways. You can kind of look at his stats. I thought he was one of the best pitchers on the team for a little bit because
yeah,
you know,
he flashed.
Those games where he was, you know, throwing 6 no-hit innings, 7 no-hit innings. He went from a 1.29 ERA in July to a 4.67 ERA in September. In August itself, he had a 9.42 ERA. So it was pretty easy to catch what he was doing, especially at the big league level where guys can hit velo, and your whiff percentage on your fastball is only 13%. So your slider was that strikeout pitch, but when you're throwing, you know, those high power fastball, that's probably the pitch that you want guys swinging and missing, but they were barreling those up very easily.
Yeah, I think I went into this thinking that we would debate, and now that I feel like I just want to just be there with you and get on Joe B's level, because the case for him over Seymour is that he has better upside. That's the case for him. He's got better velocity and better upside potential. He's got potential. I think the path to success is deepening the mix and deepening that mix in the zone, and then making it harder to zero in on his fastball, because that leads to everything you're talking about with poor chase, high exit velo, high barrel rates. They're hitting it hard, and I think it's because the shape is not great, and he's got to lean on it to hit the zone. So, I don't know. I think in the immediate future, I'm higher on Seymour over Boyle. And why I'm higher on him than most people, I don't see many people talking about Ian Seymour, and I do get it, because the stuff, truly by stuff plus on Fangraphs is really not great, and I get that, and that is important. That is important, especially probably for the Rays. I would imagine they might not even be that high on him, but he has, for me, passed my eye test, and I know that's questionable, but he's a lefty funk with a deep arsenal. And he has shown pitchability. He has shown the ability to sequence and diversify his approach to hitters. And against lefties, he's got really 5 pitches, but even a 6th pitch, a cutter, or a curveball, that he'll occasionally use, but it's really minimal. So he's got 5 pitches against lefties. Against righties, he really goes fastball, changeup, cutter. He likes to run the cutter in on the righties, which occasionally could get him into trouble against a really good hitter. When he's gotten touched up at times, he hasn't gotten that cutter in the right spot. If you watch him pitch, he's got some swagger and he's got some confidence, and he has that funk, and he believes in. Joe B's got some swagger about him too, with an mound presence. But you could, a Seymour is weird, and I think it doesn't bug him. Like, he is himself. And I appreciate that. So there's some intangibles that I like. Let me get to some tangibles. Fastball velocity is below average. What's above average is the induced vertical break, 17. So he has as a complete opposite of Joe Boyle. Boyle has poor pitch shape, good velocity. Seymour has good pitch shape, poor velocity. However, he averaged 91.5. if you watch highlights of Ian Seymour, when he wants to strike somebody out on the fastball, he gets it to 93, 94, which is at left-handed pitcher average. He doesn't use that all the time. He kind of lets that sneak up on you, which goes back to my point on pitchability. He'll work you backwards. He'll start you with slow stuff, surprise you with a 93, 94 heater. The changeup is exceptional. That's his best pitch. Throws it against both sides of the plate. What's interesting is despite the poor velo, he was 78th percentile in K percentage last year, which is very promising to me. He finds a way to get strikeouts without relying on stuff, which I think gives him a floor. The issues with him is 23rd percentile whiff, similar to Joe Beasy over there, not getting enough whiff. And sometimes he's in the zone, I think, a little too much with certain pitches. When he's gotten himself into trouble, which surprised me, is walks. Sometimes he can be his own worst enemy with some walks. Even though the walk rate was okay, that's when he gets himself into trouble. If you're going to be the type of pitcher that he is, you need to take after Steven Matz. You need to watch Steven Matz closely this year, and you need to become someone who doesn't walk anybody and reduces the hard hit rate. That's the maturity I see for him, is improving on who he already is by reducing the walk rates to well above average. Easier said than done. And reducing and getting a little bit more whiff by using what he does have of pitchability and funk. And so that's what I'm asking him to do, and that's why I like him. I don't think he could be an ace, but I think he could be a good third, fourth, fifth starter as he matures as a pitcher.
Yeah, when I say Ian Seymour, I don't know if I'm supposed to think like this, but I see him kind of similar to a pitcher like Ryan Yarbrough for the Rays, of somebody that, he's a lefty, kind of has I think Yarbrough threw a little bit lower for where his arm angle was, but very similar in terms of having a whole bunch of pitches. Yarbrough used the cutter a little bit more than I think Ian Seymour does, but I don't know, when I look at Seymour, it's so weird looking at him, right? His K percentage is so good, and he really doesn't give a lot of hard hits, which is kind of the opposite of Joe Boyle, right? Joe Boyle's, they have pretty similar K percentage, but Boyle gives up those hard hits. The big difference comes in the velo that they both throw. So I think for both of them, it's just a matter of opportunity, right? If Steven Matz gets hurt, I'm sure Ian Seymour's the one that gets slotted in. And if Nick Martinez gets hurt, I'm sure Joe Boyle is the one that slots in for him. I think they both start on the opening day roster in the bullpen. But I'm curious to see how the Rays use both of them and in what fashion, right? There is a world where they kind of do like a tandem start. So Ian Seymour starts the game and Joe Boyle comes in after about 4 or 5 innings, and those two pitch the game. But, the Rays have a good problem of having a lot of pitching, but, it's both guys that are still just a little bit rough around the edges, right? I mean, Seymour, they only started him in 5 games. So are they going to let the leash or the leash loose a little bit more and let him start more games if needed in the season, rather than following an opener like he did previously? And that's the big difference with Joe Boyle. Joe Boyle started most of his games, besides a couple where he came in the bullpen.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what our audience thinks, who they would rather see get more innings next year or be first in line to come up. So, okay, good stuff. We got two topics to get through here. Let's say we got about 15 minutes left before we might get booted off of this podcast platform on the free plan that we're on for right now. So, first thing I want to talk about is a very exciting thought to have, which is Junior Caminero getting a long-term extension. So, is this the right time for it, and how much are we thinking that it's going to be? And I'll tee you up here. I've got Junior 8 years, 130 is my number, and I could back that up. I think you're higher up, and I want to hear your thoughts on what the number would be and if you think this is the right time to strike. And we've seen him be asked this already, so there's things are happening maybe behind the scenes.
Yeah, Junior said he wants to be here. He says Tampa City, and he's taking on this leadership role. He's He's doing interviews in English, which is incredible to see because I feel like it's so hard for these guys to do it. I mean, Jonathan Aranda doesn't do English interviews. Yanni Diaz doesn't do English interviews. And just at 22 years old, Junior Caminero is doing as much English in his interviews as he can. I think right now is not the time to extend him. Uh, he doesn't become arbitration eligible until 2028, so they still have like a little bit of time to get maybe the finances in order. But when that does come, the extension, I think it's to be closer towards a 10-year, $210 million extension. Now, there is always a world that Junior is more of a 35 home run guy and not a 45, 50 home run guy, right? That could hurt him, but right now, I think it'd be crazy to think that he would make less than $200 million. And at such a young age, I think a 10-year contract would be something that cements the team for a while, right? This is your next cornerstone guy. He's here for the next 10 years, barring any trade. And he's someone that the fans can get their jersey and know, when they go to the stadium that their kids are going to see Junior Caminero at third base.
Yeah. Yeah, I could be very wrong on my 8-130, and if there's more years for it, it's definitely wrong. And my thought, so I'm going to give a couple comps. So let's start with Wander Franco, the most recent extension for the Rays. 11 for 182. Now, it was the Rays struck on this early because Franco sadly was a better player, at least at this age, and he played a more premium position. He showed 5 tools. Incredibly adaptable. Obviously, we're never going to see him again. He was 11, 182. So now this was several years ago now, so price of the brick's gone up since then for sure. Junior plays third base, which is less valuable. And however, regardless of what the amount ends up being, I do think this is the right time to strike, and I'm kind of taking the Rays side of things here. I'm taking an organization's side of things, and both parties takes two to tango here. Two worlds have to collide. Junior right now was let's say an average defender, and as far as his on base percentage and his plate discipline, his approach at the plate still needs work. He has the most important skill out of the gate of bat speed, which is key to everything. All the best hitters have good bat speed for the most part. So, excuse me. So you're starting from a good place. It's a little bit like a golfer. You would want a golfer to start with club head speed, hit the ball far, and then learn how to hit it straight afterwards. That's how you would want to teach. If you have a young kid out there, that's how you would want to teach them. The thing is that he has room for growth on the defense, and we've seen him working on this. The plate skills are what naturally improves as you become a more experienced player. So we're talking about a guy who in his prime could combine all of these things to be a 6, 7 more player. We're talking maybe an MVP someday. There's that kind of upside in here. That is why I think the Rays need to strike now, because they can say that is potential, but what we know about you right now is that you might be an average defender, you don't bring a lot of speed on the base pass, and your plate skills are still rough around the edges. And that's why I think they can get a little bit of better deal for him now. I think if you wait till after this season, if he makes the steps in the direction we think, that is going to become a lot more expensive, and that's where I think it's closer to your number, which was, I think, 10-200.
Yep.
Yeah, that now he's still young, and so if you do the extension now, you've got at least one renewable year, 3 ARB years in there. You're probably buying out, let's say, 3 years of free agency to his age 30 plus season. I wanted to look, if you've got something to add here, I'm going to look up Mikel Garcia in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, I dove into a couple of the other Rays' big notable extensions besides Wander Franco. Now, with Wander Franco's contract, after he signed it, I believe when it would have ended, he would have been 31 or 32 years old. So it put him in a pretty good spot to get another pretty major contract after his first one. But, Kevin Kiermaier, the little bit more recent extension guy, he got his first extension right before he hit that first year of arbitration, right after about 365 games played. And then you look at the most notable extension the franchise ever had was probably Evan Longoria. He's got 2 extensions with the Rays. First in 2008, after I don't even think he played any major league games yet, but it was 6 year for 17.5 million. So essentially, they paid for his pre-arbitration years, and then I think his first couple of arbitration years, and then in 2012 gave him the second extension of 6 years, 100 million, which at the time it was still a steal. I think he just wanted to stay with the team, but I think we can realistically think that the Rays won't extend Junior until the Wander Franco trial is obviously completed, so they know where their money is going to go. But also maybe wait until he is a little bit closer towards that arbitration. It's not very far. Like I said, it's in 2028, but they might want to wait and see, there is a world where this could bite them and they do spend a little bit extra money of what he's going to go for. But it's also a world where, like you said, you're not the defender like Wander Franco was, right? Your bat is closer towards a 30-35 home run bat, so maybe they could get a better deal. And also he says he loves Tampa. I wonder if he would take some sort of discount to stay there. I don't think he would, but I would say if the Rays strike now, they might be able to get a little cheaper, but he is on such a hype train that price is probably a little bit more inflated than what you'd expect he would get.
Yeah. It would be nice. It would be nice to turn the page and have a new guy extended. And even though we're in stadium limbo, the A's are in stadium limbo, and they are not afraid to give out. Look at the extensions they've been giving out. So I hope that wouldn't hold us up. I looked up Michael Garcia real quick. Last thing I had on this. So Michael Garcia, who was very good last year. He's a different profile to Junior. He's very good defensively, maybe the best defensively, if not one of the best over at third. There's some legendary third basemen still in the league that, maybe you could argue, but he got 5 years, 57 and a half. And so that was 11.5 million per year, 4 years of ARB, 1 year of free agency, club option at the end too. And I think he was Super 2. It looked like he was a Super 2, so I think he only had 2 years renewable. I got an extra year of ARB in there. So, yeah, I mean, he's going... I think Junior's going to make more than that because of the power and the upside and the age as well. But that feels like a pretty good deal for the Royals, and I hope that the Rays can find something for that. So, all right, I've got to transition us to our last topic here. We probably need to go through this one quick. And we want to give you guys, we'll leave you with something with 4 players to watch. I want to watch every player, but let's hone in on 4 for spring. And you kick us off here. You've got 2 hitters. I've got 2 pitchers. You start us off with your first hitter.
Yep, I got 2 of them. The first one is the one I'm a little bit more excited about, and fans probably know him a little bit more. Braden Taylor is the first guy I want to touch on. Very interesting career up to this point. He came in, was the number 5 prospect in 2024. I believe he was a first-round pick out of TCU. He was a top 100 MLB prospect, and then you come to 25, the man is unranked in MLB, unranked in the Rays organization, and pretty much struggled as much as you can struggle in AA. In his career in AA, he's had a 178, 289, 320 triple slash with a 609 OPS. The bat is pretty much disappearing, and for someone that really wasn't an elite defender, like someone you think maybe like Carson Williams, who's been highly touted throughout the minors as a defender, the bat really makes up for a lot of that, and it wasn't performing. But there is silver lining in him. He did play in the Arizona Fall League, and in 16 games, he had a 264, 400, 472 triple slash, so batting average, on base percentage, and slugging with an 872 OPS. He's a lefty that mainly plays third base and second base, so the Rays have still had a lot of praise for him. He was invited to the camp as one of the invitees, which is a pretty big deal, right? When you look at the other guys that were also included. He still has a good grasp of the strike zone. A big issue is his luck as well. His batting average, ball in play, went from 322 to 229, right? So a lot of these hits that he was getting was just finding the defender, right? So he's still making contact. It's just a bit of bad luck that some players get. The word is he's been making adjustments with his hips, and now he has a broken thumb. So we'll see kind of how he plays out in camp, but he's someone that's very exciting, again, as like a a left-handed hitting second baseman that the Rays don't have anymore. Besides someone like Gavin Lux in the system, he's pretty interesting. And then the second guy is one of the Rays' top 30 prospects. I got Cooper Kinney, again, a second, third base, number 23 in the Rays system. He's moved up. It's been a pretty slow progression. Each year he's gone up. So he went from rookie to low A to high A to double A. And his big stuff is he has good bat speed. Again, pretty bad numbers when he went from high A to double A Montgomery, which kind of seems like a trend for some of these guys. So something to look out for. A little bit better than Braden Taylor, right? He had a 685 OPS, but pretty similar on base percentage and even a bit of a higher slugging than him, but it's really not hard to do a little bit better than Braden Taylor. His big issue, right, is he's not a very strong fielder. He has a 968 fielding percentage at second base through 60 games. So interesting to see how the Rays view him, considering they value so much in their defense, but excited to see how he kind of progresses this season. I'm sure he'll start at AAA with how his trend has gone, and kind of see how him and Braden Taylor really compete against each other, because they're kind of going for the same role right now, and they're pretty much at the same levels.
Yeah, really good. No, that's a great rundown. That's a great rundown. So we got two hitters. I'm going to give you two pitchers. I got one reliever, one starter. My reliever for you, and I kept these from Will, so he doesn't know where I'm going with this. So my first guy is a left-handed relief pitcher by the name of Cam Boozer. That's what I'm gonna throw at you out there. Cam Boozer, who we just picked up in the offseason. If you haven't read the article the Topkin article in the Times, it's worth the read. This guy is at 33 years old now. He's literally gone through the hero's journey redemption arc to return to the game. A lot of things went right for him. He's been through a lot. I think you could say that pitching well, it may not be he may have a good perspective going into being an athlete as opposed to the grander scheme of life, which that's just maybe my read on him. So let me give you a couple things here on Boozer. We saw his spring debut. He got an inning in the first game. He went 1-2-3 with 2 Ks. He faced 3 righties, and he's a lefty. And he got 2 Ks. Both those Ks were on changeups. He's going to attack righties with cutters and changeups. And why I think this is a good project, Boozer's a good project for the Rays, is he has good velo from the left side. And he's got a little bit of a different look than Clevenger. There's only one lefty on the Rays in the bullpen right now, which is Clevenger. And I think I would imagine we want to go into the year with 2, but I could be wrong. So his profile, he's got good velo. He's going to attack players with cutters in the zone, heaters in the zone. His issue is that he hasn't always been able to find the zone. And so that's why I think he's good for the Rays, because their strategy of throw it down the middle and let it move, let its natural variance of where that pitch lands, move it to where you want it. So I could see Boozer sneaking a roster spot in the pen if Ian Seymour doesn't grab it in the bullpen. Our other option is Joe Rock, who has a lower arm angle than Boozer, but has so he's a little weirder approach angle, but he also has less velo. But the positive for Joe Rock is that he's been able to hit the zone better. So watch out for Cam Boozer. What's his walk rate look like? What does his attack against righties look like? Which we got a glimpse of. That's my first guy. My next guy is the most exciting arm in the Rays farm system, of a farm system that has some very good arms, and it's Brody Hopkins. I had to go Brody here. It's just too much fun to talk about. I had to go for him. I know I went chalk. This is not a deep cut. So got it from the Randy Arozarena trade. 59th ranked prospect in Fangraphs. Second ranked behind Carson Williams for the Rays. And if you read the report on Brody Hopkins, the way that they talk about him is an athlete. He's an athlete. And he was an outfielder converted to a starter. He's got great velocity. And he also, I saw an interview with him from the Locked On Rays podcast. So shout out to those guys. They interviewed him, and he described himself as a quick learner, which I would have to agree with. And I like that was what came to mind for him. He likes to study other pitchers on YouTube. I thought that was a couple good nuggets about him as a person. So he's got great velocity, but trouble with location. Have we heard this story before in this podcast already with some other guys? Last year, he was second in Double-A with a 29.3% K rate as a starter. So can he lower that walk rate? Good chance we see him towards the end of this year. If you watch him pitch, he's got a little bit of FU in him on the mound. He's got a lot of confidence in himself. Here's what I want you to look out for. Besides, is he finding the zone? What's his walks? What do his walks look like? Is watch his mechanics. I am not an expert on mechanics, okay, by any means here. If you watch his mechanics, it looks like to me his arm, maybe he almost relies on his athleticism a little too much. His arm seems to get behind him a little bit. His body's outpacing his arm. And I think this is leading to some inconsistency. The other thing is he seems to lose his balance and fall to the left side away from the rubber when he lands, especially on bigger breaking pitches. I noticed that he seems to have a lot more confidence in the execution of his fastball. Breaking pitches, it seems like he's not, I don't know if it's mental or physical, but it just seems like he's not landing and finishing with the same really good look that the fastball has. So watch that when you watch him pitch in spring. Is he hitting the zone, and what is the execution rate with these breaking pitches? What does he look like on the mound? How does he land? And so very exciting guy. We should believe in him for sure. And that's who I wanted to leave you with. Will, I think we got through everything here for the first episode of the opener. We hope you all enjoyed it. Now you opened us up, Will, and I want to give you the chance to close. And I'm going to say this sentence to you: 2018 Joey Wendell. Any thoughts there? 100 wins. 4.7 WAR. Squatting at the plate. Yeah, that season, 4.7 WAR for all of you listening at home here in 139 games. Fourth in Rookie of the Year. So can't think of a better way to close than that. Well, thank you for listening. Will, thank you. Excited to get this podcast going, and we'll see you soon.